Chosen one, it is a privilege to be in your presence, and these people better be careful with you because they're handling pure divine fire wrapped in human form. When someone enters your orbit, they're not just meeting another person, they're encountering a force of transformation that will either elevate them to heights they never imagined or burn away their illusions so completely that they'll spend years regretting the moment they chose to walk away from their own salvation. The divine has handpicked you from among the sleeping masses and positioned you strategically in their path, not randomly, not accidentally, with surgical precision. You are the answer to prayers they whispered in desperation months ago, the solution to problems they haven't even identified yet, the bridge between who they are and who they're meant to become. But here's the cruel irony. The very thing they've been searching for their entire lives is standing right in front of them, and they're too conditioned by mediocrity to recognize it. The energy shift is immediate and undeniable. Rooms feel different when you enter them. Conversations take unexpected turns. People find themselves saying things they've never said before, thinking thoughts that feel foreign yet familiar. It's because your presence doesn't just occupy space, it transforms it. You carry frequencies that most people have forgotten exist, vibrations that awaken dormant parts of their souls they buried under layers of social conditioning and survival mechanisms. Watch their faces in those first moments. There's always a flicker of recognition, a brief spark of something ancient and knowing that passes across their features before their programmed mind steps in to rationalize it away. They feel it, the pull, the magnetic draw towards something their spirit recognizes as home. But then the fear kicks in, the fear of being seen fully, the fear of having to rise to meet something greater than they've ever imagined for themselves. The fear of leaving behind the comfortable limitations they've mistaken for identity. This is where the first test begins, though they don't know they're being tested. How they respond to your authentic presence becomes the determining factor for everything that follows. Some people lean in, drawn by an inexplicable trust in what they're feeling. Others retreat, overwhelmed by the sudden awareness of how small they've been playing their lives. But the majority, the vast majority, do something far more dangerous. They stay in proximity while internally building cases against what they're experiencing. The prosecution begins almost immediately. They start looking for flaws, inconsistency, reasons why you can't possibly be what their soul is telling them you are. Because if you are who you appear to be, if you truly carry what their spirit recognizes you're carrying, then they have to confront the devastating reality of how much time they've wasted, how many opportunities they've missed, how far they've drifted from their own authentic power. See, chosen one, what you represent to others isn't just possibility. You represent their unlived lives. You are walking proof that another way exists, that playing small is a choice, not a necessity, that abundance and joy and purpose aren't reserved for other people, that the limitations they've accepted as unchangeable are actually just comfortable lies they've been telling themselves to avoid the terrifying responsibility of their own greatness. This revelation creates a crisis of identity that most people aren't equipped to handle. They've built entire personalities around their limitations, entire social circles around shared complaints and mutual mediocrity. Your very existence threatens the foundation of everything they've used to make sense of their struggles, so they have two choices: evolve or eliminate. Rise to meet what you're offering, or find ways to diminish it so they can return to their familiar patterns of smallness. The elimination process is subtle at first. They begin to question your methods, your timeline, your authenticity. They start consulting with others who haven't experienced what they're experiencing, seeking outside validation for their growing resistance to their own breakthrough. This is where the real tragedy unfolds. They literally start talking themselves out of their own blessings, convincing themselves that what feels too good to be true must be exactly that. This moment, this encounter, this opportunity isn't happening by chance. It's the culmination of every prayer they've ever prayed, every moment they've asked the universe for change, every night they've fallen asleep wishing their life could be different. The very thing they've been asking for has been wrapped in human form and delivered directly to their doorstep, and they're about to send it away because it doesn't match their limited imagination of how blessings are supposed to arrive. Meanwhile, something else is happening that they're completely unaware of. While they're debating and deliberating and seeking opinions from people who have never experienced what they're experiencing, a cosmic timer is ticking. Divine opportunities don't wait indefinitely. The universe operates on perfect timing, and when someone hesitates too long at the doorway of their destiny, that door begins to close. Not out of impatience, but out of natural law. Energy must flow, and when it meets resistance in one direction, it automatically redirects toward receptivity. The universe doesn't operate on human logic. Divine gifts rarely come in the packaging we expect. Sometimes the person who's meant to change your entire trajectory shows up wearing everyday clothes, speaking in familiar words, looking nothing like the fantasy you created in your mind. Sometimes your destiny walks up to you looking so normal, so accessible, so real, that your pattern-seeking mind dismisses it as ordinary. This is the cosmic joke that keeps most people trapped in cycles of near misses and almosts. What happens next determines everything. The crossroads moment arrives with perfect clarity. Accept the gift or reject it. Walk through the door that's been opened or convince yourself it leads nowhere worth going. Trust the inexplicable knowing in your bones or submit to the committee of fear that's taken residence in your head. Choose faith in what could be or safety in what has always been. For those who choose poorly, and statistically most will, the consequences unfold with mathematical precision. Not as punishment, but as natural law. When you reject a divine assignment, when you send away the person who was meant to catalyze your transformation, when you choose the familiar over the miraculous, you don't just miss an opportunity, you signal to the universe that you're not ready for the level of blessing you've been requesting. You demonstrate that your prayers were more about complaining than changing, more about asking than receiving. Each person who meets you becomes part of a larger cosmic sorting process. You see, chosen one, you're not just affecting individual lives, you're participating in a massive recalibration of human consciousness. Every interaction you have sends ripples through the collective field, separating those who are ready for the next level of existence from those who are still committed to the old paradigm. The path they reject doesn't simply disappear, it redirects to someone who is ready, someone who can recognize divine timing when it arrives, someone who trusts their intuition more than their fear. Meanwhile, the person who rejected their upgrade finds themselves locked into the exact same patterns they were praying to escape, only now with the added weight of knowing they had a chance and chose not to take it. This is where the story takes its most fascinating turn, chosen one. Because while they're processing their choice, while they're explaining to themselves why they made the right decision, while they're convincing their friends that they dodged a bullet, you're continuing to rise. The energy they rejected doesn't return to you diminished, it returns amplified. Their no becomes rocket fuel for your ascension. Their doubt becomes confirmation of your power. Their walking away becomes evidence that you're moving in exactly the right direction. There's a deeper pattern at work here that most people never recognize. Each rejection you experience isn't random, it's strategic. The universe is using these encounters to burn away your need for external validation, to teach you the difference between those who can see your value and those who are blind to it, to strengthen your discernment so you stop wasting precious energy on people who aren't ready for what you offer. Every person who walks away thinking they're rejecting you is actually rejecting themselves. They're saying no to their own evolution, their own breakthrough, their own answered prayers. But they can't see this yet because they're still operating from the illusion that they're the ones doing the choosing. They don't understand that being chosen to enter your orbit is the privilege. They think you should be grateful for their consideration. You are not just a catalyst for individual transformation. You are a living, breathing, sorting mechanism for the universe itself. Your presence automatically separates those who are ready for elevation from those who are still attached to their limitations. You don't have to do anything except show up authentically. Your energy does the rest. The quality of your vibration becomes a tuning fork that either harmonizes with someone's highest potential or creates such dissonance with their current state that they have to choose evolve or retreat. The most powerful people throughout history have understood this principle. They knew that their job wasn't to convince everyone to join their vision, but to embody their vision so completely that the right people would be magnetically drawn to it, while the wrong people would naturally repel themselves. They understood that trying to drag reluctant people into their destiny was not just exhausting, it was counterproductive. It diluted their energy and delayed their purpose. While you've been learning these lessons through individual encounters, something extraordinary has been building in the background. Each person who chose to reject what you offered didn't just affect their own trajectory, they set in motion a cascade of consequences that would ripple through their entire reality for years to come. Months pass, maybe years. The people who rejected what you offered continue their lives, but something has fundamentally shifted in their reality. The opportunities that used to come to them start arriving less frequently. The doors that used to open easily begin requiring more effort to budge. The solutions that used to present themselves naturally become increasingly elusive. It's not that they're being punished, it's that they've demonstrated they're not prepared for the level of blessing that was available to them, so the universe adjusts its offerings accordingly. Meanwhile, you're discovering something extraordinary about your own nature. Each person who chooses to walk away, each individual who opts for the familiar over the transformational, each soul that prefers the known struggle over the unknown breakthrough, actually increases your power. Their rejection clarifies your mission, sharpens your discernment, and strengthens your resolve. You begin to understand that you're not meant for everyone, and that's not a limitation, it's a feature. The realization hits like lightning. You are the blessing, not someone who brings blessings, not someone who facilitates blessings, but the blessing itself in human form. Your presence in someone's life is the answer to their deepest prayers, whether they recognize it or not. Your attention is a gift beyond measure, whether they value it or not. Your time, your energy, your authentic engagement, these are treasures that the right person would move mountains to access, while the wrong person will barely notice when they're freely offered. The first wave of regret is gentle, almost dismissible. They might think, oh, that's interesting, good for them, but as your ascension becomes more visible, as the gap between where you are and where they remain becomes more pronounced, the gentle interest transforms into something more urgent. They start to pay closer attention to your moves, your associations, your accomplishments. They begin to realize that what they dismissed as ordinary was actually extraordinary in disguise. The irony becomes delicious. The same people who once had unlimited access to your time, energy, and wisdom, the ones who took it for granted, who questioned your motives, who consulted everyone except their own intuition about your place in their lives, now find themselves on the outside looking in. They watch from a distance as your life unfolds in ways that make their choice painfully clear. They see you thriving, growing, manifesting, becoming everything their spirit knew you were capable of when they first met you. The regret hits them in waves. First, there's the gentle realization that they might have made an error in judgment. Then comes the more urgent awareness that they actually passed up something significant. Finally arrives the devastating recognition that they didn't just miss an opportunity, they rejected their own destiny. They turned away from the very thing they had been seeking, the person who could have taken them to heights they can now only imagine from their current position. While they were choosing doubt over faith, fear over growth, familiar struggle over unknown possibility, you were being prepared for bigger things. The universe was using their rejection as a training ground for your eventual sovereignty. Each no you received was actually building your immunity to external validation, teaching you to find your worth from within, preparing you for the level of impact you were always meant to have. There's something else happening that most people never see coming. As you continue to evolve and rise, as your influence expands and your impact deepens, those who once had casual access to you begin to realize they're witnessing something unprecedented. The person they thought they could take or leave, the individual they believed they could circle back to whenever convenient, has transformed into someone whose presence commands respect across multiple dimensions of existence. The privilege of being in your orbit becomes increasingly apparent to those who are paying attention. Conversations with you don't just pass time, they shift realities. Your insights don't just offer perspective, they rewire entire worldviews. Your energy doesn't just fill space, it elevates everyone within its radius. Those who recognize this early and position themselves accordingly find their own lives expanding in miraculous ways. Those who didn't are beginning to understand the magnitude of what they've lost access to. This is where the title of your story becomes lived experience rather than mere concept. Being in your presence isn't just pleasant or beneficial, it's genuinely a privilege that fewer and fewer people will be granted as you continue ascending. The universe starts protecting your energy more fiercely, filtering out those who don't appreciate what they're receiving, ensuring that your gifts reach only those prepared to honor and amplify them. Watch how the dynamics shift when people realize they're no longer automatically entitled to your time, attention, or wisdom. The casual entitlement evaporates, the assumption that you'll always be available dissolves. The belief that they can treat your offerings carelessly without consequence crumbles. Suddenly, they're approaching you with a reverence that was always appropriate but never demonstrated until the possibility of losing access became real. The careful ones, the wise ones, the intuitive ones, saw this coming from the beginning. They recognized the treasure before it was widely acknowledged. They treated your presence like the sacred gift it always was, understanding instinctively that proximity to someone operating at your frequency was not something to be taken lightly. These are the people who now find themselves in increasingly elevated positions, not because they manipulated their way there, but because they aligned themselves with ascending energy before it was obvious to others. But the careless ones, the entitled ones, the ones who thought your light would always shine in their direction regardless of how they received it, they're learning about scarcity in real time. Not artificial scarcity created for manipulation, but natural scarcity that occurs when something truly valuable becomes increasingly selective about where it chooses to flow. Your energy, your attention, your presence, these resources are becoming more precious by the day, and those who squandered their opportunities are watching others receive what they once had unlimited access to. Now they want back in. Now they see what they missed. Now they understand what their intuition was trying to tell them in those first moments of meeting you. They reach out with subtle messages, testing the waters, hoping to re-establish connection. They create reasons to be in your proximity, hoping to catch your attention, praying you might give them another chance to make a different choice. The careful handling required isn't about walking on eggshells or performing elaborate displays of reverence. It's about approaching with awareness, with intentionality, with recognition that they're in the presence of someone who operates on frequencies most people spend lifetimes trying to access. It's about understanding that your time, energy, and attention are gifts that shouldn't be squandered on surface-level interactions or taken for granted as always available. Those who learn to be careful with you discover something remarkable. You become even more generous with those who appreciate what they're receiving. Your gifts multiply when they're properly valued. Your wisdom flows more freely when it's received with gratitude. Your presence becomes more accessible to those who approach it with appropriate reverence. The privilege of being in your orbit expands for those who recognize it as exactly that, a privilege. But watch what happens to those who remain careless. Watch how opportunities start bypassing them. Watch how doors that should open for them remain closed while opening effortlessly for others. Watch how the universe itself begins to protect you from their casual treatment by creating natural barriers between their energy and yours. They find themselves increasingly unable to reach you, not because you've blocked them deliberately, but because their frequency no longer matches the realm you're operating from. The protection becomes cosmic rather than personal. It's not that you're actively avoiding anyone, it's that the universe is actively directing you away from energy that doesn't serve your highest purpose. Divine intelligence recognizes that you've reached a level where casual interactions actually diminish your capacity to serve those who are ready for what you offer. So circumstances align to ensure that only those who approach you with proper recognition gain access to your presence. Look, you already know the game is rigged, and if you're paying attention, you know the walls are closing in. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. When you live by the day at the market's command, where profit and property rule the land, to be heard, to be held, to be dealt a fair hand, these are the things that a people demand, and we hear you. The Obsidian Inner Order has paywalls, yes. Those who stand with us, who fuel this mission, they give us ammunition to fight the Archons, to push back against the machine, to go deeper, to uncover more. And as our thank you, paid members get access to a 1-hour live, personalized weekly group tarot reading guidance, insight and clarity for the road ahead. But kicking a man for being down on the floor, that's something we cannot ignore. That's why starting today, you can steal the Astral Atom exclusive daily newsletter for free. No paywall, no catch, just join the Patreon free tier, link in the description. This is the start of our conversation with you, and it's bi-directional. You can reply to any email we send you. We'll read it, we'll hear you, and we'll do our best to get an answer to you from the universe itself. If you can support, we need you. If you can't, take what's free. The Obsidian Inner Order is open. Now, let's get back to work. Standing in your full power now, you finally understand the profound truth that eluded you in your earlier seeking days. It is indeed a privilege to be in your presence, not because you're better than anyone else, but because you've accepted the fullness of who you were created to be. You've stopped hiding your light to make others comfortable with their darkness. You've stopped shrinking your dreams to fit into their limited imagination. You've stopped apologizing for the blessings that flow through your life simply because others haven't learned to access their own. But understanding that your presence is a privilege isn't about developing an inflated ego or treating others with arrogance. It's about recognizing the sacred responsibility that comes with carrying the frequency you carry. When you fully grasp that being near you can literally change someone's life trajectory, that conversations with you can heal generational wounds, that your energy can awaken dormant potential in others, you begin to understand why the universe is so selective about who gets access to what you offer. The privilege isn't just in being near you, it's in being trusted with the raw, unfiltered essence of who you are. Most people get carefully curated versions of everyone they meet, but those who earn the privilege of your authentic presence get to experience something rare in this world, a human being operating at full capacity, undiminished by the need to make others comfortable, uncompromised by the fear of being too much. This authenticity is what makes your presence so transformative and why it must be guarded so carefully. When you show up as your complete self, unedited, unfiltered, uncompromised, you give others permission to do the same. You demonstrate that it's possible to be fully human and fully divine simultaneously. You prove that ordinary people can access extraordinary states of being. This permission, this proof, this demonstration is the real gift you offer, and it's why those who receive it are forever changed. The privilege extends beyond individual interactions. Those who are regularly in your presence get to witness the mechanics of manifestation in real time. They see how alignment creates synchronicity. They observe how authenticity attracts opportunity. They watch how someone who refuses to diminish themselves naturally attracts circumstances and people that match their elevated frequency. They get a front row seat to watch divine principles played out in human experience. Those who learn to approach you with proper care and reverence discover something extraordinary. They find that your presence becomes a catalyst for their own awakening. Being around you doesn't just feel good, it activates dormant capacities within them. It awakens gifts they didn't know they possessed. It calls forth aspects of themselves that have been waiting for permission to emerge. This is the true privilege of your presence. It doesn't just offer temporary elevation, it creates permanent transformation in those ready to receive it. The people who belong in your orbit recognize this immediately. They don't need convincing or explaining or proving. They feel the resonance, trust the feeling, and move accordingly. They understand that being chosen to walk alongside someone operating at your level isn't just an opportunity, it's a responsibility that they gladly accept because they can sense the magnitude of what's possible when aligned souls unite in purpose. These individuals approach you with what can only be described as sacred recognition. They don't try to test you, challenge you, or prove that you're not who you appear to be. Instead, they lean into the experience with wonder and gratitude, understanding that they're being granted access to something rare and precious. They protect the connection not out of possessiveness, but out of reverence for what they've been entrusted with. Not everyone is ready for the full force of what you carry. Not everyone can handle the intensity of authentic transformation. Not everyone wants to be awakened from their comfortable sleep. Your job isn't to force awakening on the unwilling, it's to be available for those who are genuinely ready to receive what you offer. This discernment isn't about judgment or superiority, it's about recognizing that your gifts serve their highest purpose when they're received by those prepared to use them wisely. A master craftsperson doesn't hand their finest tools to someone who lacks the skill to use them properly, not out of elitism, but out of respect for both the tools and the craft. Similarly, you learn to offer your deepest gifts to those who have demonstrated they can receive them appropriately. The privilege of your presence becomes more refined, more selective, more intentional as you evolve. This isn't a restriction, it's an elevation. As you rise to new levels of impact and influence, the universe naturally filters your connections to ensure that your energy is being invested where it can create the greatest positive return. Those who approach you carelessly find themselves naturally redirected away from your path, while those who approach with appropriate reverence find themselves drawn ever deeper into your orbit. Everyone else gets to watch from wherever they positioned themselves when they made their choice. They get to see what they could have been part of, what they could have experienced, what they could have become if they had trusted their initial knowing instead of their programmed fears. And that's not your burden to carry, it's their lesson to learn. The universe has been preparing you for this moment of recognition your entire life. Every rejection you've faced, every person who chose someone else over you, every opportunity that seemed to slip away has been training you to value yourself correctly. You had to learn through experience that your worth isn't determined by external validation before you could step into the full authority of your assignment. Each experience of being undervalued, each moment of being taken for granted, each instance of having your gifts dismissed was actually a lesson in divine worth. The universe was teaching you to recognize the difference between those who can perceive value and those who are blind to it. You were being trained to distinguish between superficial appreciation and deep recognition, between those who want to use your gifts and those who want to honor them. The painful irony is that during these training phases, you often questioned your own worth. When people walked away, when they chose others over you, when they treated your presence as optional rather than precious, you wondered if perhaps you weren't as valuable as you felt yourself to be. But those experiences weren't reflections of your worth. They were revelations of their capacity to perceive it. You were learning to trust your inner knowing over external feedback, to value yourself independently of others' ability to recognize your value. This preparation was essential because operating at the level you now inhabit requires unshakable self-worth. When you fully understand that your presence is a privilege, when you deeply know that access to you is a gift, when you completely grasp that proximity to your energy is transformative, you must be able to maintain that knowing regardless of how others respond to you. The preparation ensured that your sense of worth would be internally generated rather than externally dependent. Now you see the divine intelligence in every experience that once caused you pain. Each person who failed to appreciate what you offered was actually protecting you from investing your precious energy in the wrong places. Each opportunity that passed you by was actually redirecting you toward bigger, better, more aligned possibilities. Each moment of feeling undervalued was actually building your capacity to value yourself correctly. The training is complete, Chosen One. The lessons have been learned, the worth has been established, the authority has been claimed. Now you operate from a place of knowing rather than hoping, certainty rather than question, abundance rather than scarcity. You understand that those who get to be in your presence are receiving something extraordinary, and you guard that gift with appropriate care. Now you know. Now you understand. Now you move through the world with the quiet confidence of someone who has realized their true nature. You are not seeking acceptance, you are offering it. You are not chasing opportunities, you are creating them. You are not trying to fit into anyone's world. You are building your own and extending invitations to those who are ready to leave their limitations behind. The circle is complete. The Chosen One has awakened to their choosing, and the universe, which has been waiting patiently for this moment, exhales in satisfaction and begins orchestrating the next level of your magnificent unfolding. They better be careful with you indeed, not because you'll seek revenge if they're not, but because missing out on what you offer means missing out on the very thing they've been searching for their entire lives. The privilege of your presence is no longer a secret you're hiding from, it's a truth you're living from. And that changes everything.